The long-term involvement of Pat Brown with alien grey visitors and their influence upon her, both positive and negative, provides us with a huge amount of information about these beings. Initially sceptical, then curiously inviting them into her life, Pat's encounters have brought her feelings ranging from extreme revulsion, anger and violation through to spiritual peace, healing and enlightenment. Although Pat's journey seems to have begun in 1988, she later reflected on incidents which suggest that she has always been in contact with the zeta reticuli extraterrestrials. In 1988, Pat was working as a telephonist and living in Southern California when she accepted an invitation from a friend called Denise to visit her in Prescott, Arizona. Although disinterested in the paranormal and essentially a skeptic, Pat agreed to stay for the purpose of accompanying her friend in accessing practitioners called walk-ins. These people possessed skills in channeling extraterrestrials. While sleeping over at Denise's home, Pat found herself already experiencing a bizarre encounter. She awoke to see two what she described as glowing light beings emerge from the bedroom wall behind her. While lying still throughout the whole experience, the presence of the slender, iridescent entities around the top of her head actually made her feel good. With Denise, Pat consulted the walk-ins the following day as planned. When the channeler made contact with an alien, Pat expressed her curiosity via the channeler to see inside the being's ship. The ET seemed quite amenable to this request and agreed. 3 days later, when Pat returned back to her own home, she had a very vivid dream that seemed as real as an actual experience. In the dream, she was lying on a table beneath a very comforting yellow light which soothed her to sleep. It was around this time that Pat felt inspired to leave her busy job and embark on a whole new path, working as a therapeutic massage practitioner. So while attempting to heal others, she continued to live a quiet but more satisfying life. At this stage, Pat's encounters were still benign and pleasant. However, this was to change. On Christmas Eve in 1992, Pat awoke to the frightening spectacle of her bed being surrounded by grey extraterrestrials. The beings shone a beam of light down onto her, terrifyingly paralysing her, then drawing her up into their craft. There she found herself on a bronze-coloured table surrounded by odd-looking panels and shelves containing unknown instruments. On either side stood two greys, one appearing female and the other male. The female alien was holding her down by placing pressure on her head and chest, while repeating in a soothing voice, "Don't be scared, I'm not going to hurt you." However, Pat put up a frenzied resistance, clawing at the alien's tiny mouth. Then came a chilling statement from the male alien. "Boy, she's quite different tonight," with the implication that this manner of abduction and onboard encounter had all happened before, who knows how many times. In retrospect, Pat remembered observing throughout the experience that the air on board the ship was something she later described as thin, cool and silky in texture, quite unlike the air we inhale on Earth. The Greys continued to visit her in these traumatising exchanges for the next 30 days, in spates of 3 days at a time, each encounter following the same pattern. She would find the Greys crowding out her room, uttering reassurances that they would not hurt her. Then a beam of light would again result in her paralysis, loss of consciousness and floating through her wall, only to wake up hours later back in her bedroom. She later reported that other strange things happened in her life at that time. On 2 occasions she saw an apparition of a large amorphous lime green mass, appearing once in her den and another time in her living room. The bizarre massive green blob was frightening, appearing then later disappearing for no apparent reason. On another occasion, she came home to find a putrid stench like rotting garbage pervading her apartment, a phenomenon that other experiencers have also reported. She knew that they had been there during her absence. After a month of these distressing abductions and manifestations, Pat, distraught with fear and frustration, found herself exclaiming, "This is far too big for me to handle." She says that a telepathic voice responded, saying, "Here is a golden ball of light for you to use for your healing. You can have it for as long as you need it." The voice told her that she was on the yellow ray of healing and, when ready, would progress to the purple ray. This seeming gift of the golden ball helped to greatly reduce her fear and stress, and it was after that time that Pat's encounters with the Greys changed from being traumatic to extremely spiritual. In a later abduction, Pat met a being who taught her about her aura and how to travel between dimensions. She suddenly found herself to be a mass of swirling, colourful energy, with the beings around her in a similar form. When she asked about this dramatic change in her form, a being called the Master told her that this manifestation was her soul, the part of her that goes through all the lifetimes. He separated her masculine and feminine energies to demonstrate how they were integrated in her being, then acquainted her with interdimensional levels that enabled her to astrally travel. The exhilaration of the experience heightened when the Master took Pat outside the ship and showed her an outer band around the Earth, where Pat felt an overwhelming sense of peacefulness and oneness. Closer, Earth was surrounded by a black swirling band of negative energies containing emotions like fear, anger and greed, with fear predominant. She was then led into an onboard control room where she and other apparent humans, whom she felt she knew, stood at a huge screen watching the galaxies fly past as they raced through the stars. She described the spectacle as glorious and accompanied by a feeling that she had finally returned to her home with people she loved. The experience seemed to change her permanently where, upon returning to her earthly home, she now felt at a higher vibrational level, even enlightenment. This also enhanced her healing massage work, when she and her clients would see a blue light emanating from her hands as she visualised Greys working with her and saying they wanted to help her heal humans. Now interested in the UFO phenomenon, Pat arranged a road trip with her friend Denise to visit the Four Corners area of the US, where the states of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico and Colorado abut each other, as she had heard rumours that there was an underground alien base there. On approaching the area, a brightly lit UFO appeared and began pacing their car at treetop level. Strangely, other vehicle drivers seemed unable to see the craft, which continued tracking them for about 2 hours until it became so close that an intense heat was mounting in their car interior. After Pat expressed her fear, the UFO distanced itself, then finally backed off. Pat continued to experience various apparitions attributable to the ETs, which, while mainly positive, some she found unnerving, confusing, and even a violation. She realised she had no conscious memory of allowing these interventions into her life, and began to recall past events that suggested they may have taken place for longer than she thought. One was a diagnosed pregnancy, which was impossible at the time as she had not been intimate with anyone. The night before her reluctant termination, she appeared to have spontaneously aborted, according to her doctor. However, no fetal tissue could be found. She wondered if the unexplained, then disappearing pregnancy was a part of her encounters, not to mention unexplained scars on her body and her memories of small grey beings when young. When Pat later expressed her anger at the apparent lack of consent given by her, a psychic channeler brought back a message from the ETs. The zeta reticuli being who was channelled told her that she had agreed to have her otherworldly experiences, which have provided her with a, quote, jump start in her growth. Pat continued to be abducted, with her fear and anger always there in the background. Although still unsure about the so-called soul agreement she had apparently made, she feels that the ETs have taught her a great deal of information about herself, that they are not malevolent and genuinely wish to help her. As they have said to her, their emotions are different from ours. She would add that they also don't really understand ours. Pat's journey, as related to UFO researcher Preston Dennett, suggests a deep connection between alien encounters and personal spiritual development. It highlights a different concept of the universe and our place within it, the existence of different dimensions and nuances of human existence.